You arrive without effort. No doors open. No switches flip. You simply notice that you are here. Around you stretches a wide, quiet forest, the kind that exists just before sleep fully arrives. The light is low and warm, filtered through tall shapes that feel more like ideas than trees. The air moves slowly, as if it has all the time in the world. You breathe, and the forest seems to breathe with you, not copying, just accompanying. You are not here to solve anything. You are not here to fix yourself, improve yourself, or become someone new before morning. You are here to notice. That is enough. That has always been enough, even when it did not feel that way. As you stand still, you sense the ground beneath your feet. It is soft, springy, forgiving. This ground is made of thought, memory, habit, and feeling, layered gently over time. Science would tell you that your brain is alive with change right now, reshaping itself quietly, even as your body rests. But here, the explanation arrives like a whisper rather than a lecture. You do not need to understand it. Your nervous system already does. Paths stretch out in every direction. Some are wide and smooth, clearly traveled, like favorite routes you could walk without looking down. Others are thinner, almost shy, barely visible beneath leaves of distraction and doubt. These paths are thoughts, reactions, stories you have walked many times, stories you have not yet dared to follow. None of them are wrong. They simply exist. You notice your shoulders drop a little. They have been holding something, perhaps for years. They release it now, or maybe they loosen it just enough to rest. Either way, the forest does not rush them. The forest has excellent patience. Frankly, it is very good at waiting. Trees have always been like that, and so has your brain, when you let it. Somewhere in the distance, there is a soft hum. It might be the sound of wind, or the echo of your own breath, or the low electrical conversation of neurons talking politely to one another. They are not shouting. They are checking in. They are saying, quietly, we are still here, and we are still learning. You take a slow breath in. The air feels warm. You let it go. Training the brain sounds like work, but here it feels more like walking barefoot on a familiar trail. Science explains, gently, that change does not require force. It requires contact, repetition, safety. You do not carve these paths with effort. They form because you walk them, because you pause on them, because you return to them when the ground feels familiar enough to hold you. A tiny smile might appear, uninvited. It is almost funny how serious change can sound when described outside this forest. In here, it is just walking. Step, pause, breathe. Your brain appreciates this simplicity. It enjoys not being yelled at for once. You notice that some paths feel automatic. They pull at your feet with a quiet confidence. This is not a flaw. This is efficiency. The brain loves efficiency. It loves saving energy. It loves saying, "Ah yes, this way again." You thank it silently for trying to help, even when its help has felt heavy in the past. Light shifts as you stand. It does not come from a single source. It seems to glow from the paths themselves, from the act of noticing them. Awareness, science would say, changes what is possible. Here, it simply changes the way things feel. Softer. Wider. Less urgent. Your breath slows again, without instruction. In. Out. You realize you are not alone in this forest, though no one else is visible. The presence you feel is your own nervous system settling, recognizing safety. When the body feels safe, learning begins naturally. This is not motivation. This is biology being kind. You look down and notice where you are standing. This path beneath your feet feels familiar. You have walked it many times, maybe today, maybe for years. It has supported you, even when it led somewhere tiring. You do not judge it. You do not need to leave it yet. You simply acknowledge it, the way you might acknowledge an old friend who has shown up again. There is no clock here. No deadline. The forest does not care what time it is. Neither does your brain, right now. A gentle curiosity stirs, not demanding answers, only awareness. You begin to sense that other paths exist nearby, not calling, not competing, just waiting. They are patient. They know you will notice them when you are ready. They have excellent manners, these paths. You take another breath, slow and easy, and feel it move through your chest, your belly, your legs, all the way down into the ground. The ground receives it gladly. It has been holding you this whole time. Change, you realize, does not start with effort. It starts with standing still long enough to feel where you already are. The science agrees quietly in the background, nodding, pleased that you are finally resting instead of chasing it. You shift your weight slightly. Not a step yet. Just a subtle movement, a conversation between balance and curiosity. The forest responds with a soft rustle, as if to say yes, whenever you are ready. For now, you breathe. You notice. You remain. And as the air moves in and out, you sense the smallest invitation forming, not as a command, but as a possibility. Somewhere just ahead, a step is waiting. You are still in the forest. Nothing dramatic has changed, and yet something feels subtly different, like the air after a light rain. The path beneath your feet feels clearer now, not because it was cleaned, but because you are noticing it more fully. Awareness has a way of sharpening edges without adding pressure. It is very polite like that. You walk slowly, not to get anywhere, but because walking feels natural. With each step, the ground responds. It does not ask questions. It remembers. This is how paths are made here. Not by decision, not by effort, but by return. Science steps in beside you, quiet and unassuming, hands in its pockets. It does not lecture. It simply points. These paths, it explains softly, form the way trails form in any forest. When something happens once, the ground barely changes. When it happens again, a faint impression appears. When it happens gently, over and over, the forest adapts. You feel this truth in your body. Habits are not failures of will. They are well-traveled ground. Your brain is not stubborn. It is economical. It prefers routes that require less energy, less uncertainty, fewer surprises. In other words, it prefers paths it already knows how to walk in the dark. You pause for a moment and listen. The distant hum is still there, steady and calm. Neurons, science would say, meet at small crossings, passing messages like lanterns from hand to hand. You imagine them nodding at one another, familiar colleagues on a night shift, saying, "Same route as usual," then. You breathe in slowly. The air feels steady. You breathe out. There is comfort in familiarity. Even paths that lead to tired places once felt like safety. The nervous system does not judge outcomes. It notices predictability. This is why certain thoughts appear before you even invite them. They are simply following the route that has worked before, or at least felt survivable. You smile faintly at this realization. It is oddly relieving to know that nothing has gone wrong. The forest has just been doing its job. Honestly, it has been doing it very diligently, perhaps a little too diligently, like an intern who never takes a break. You continue walking, noticing how your feet seem to know where to land. This is repetition at work. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just consistent. Science gently explains that change does not begin with forceful redirection. It begins with noticing where you already go. Awareness alone shifts something. The moment you see the path, you are no longer fully inside it. You are both walker and observer now. The forest likes this perspective. It opens space around you, allowing light to slip through the canopy. You feel the ground again. Soft. Reliable. You notice something new at the edge of your vision. A faint trail branches off nearby. It is not calling you. It is not glowing. It simply exists. A thought you have had before, maybe only once or twice. A response you almost chose. A pause you nearly took. The brain learns through rhythm, science reminds you. Through cycles of use and rest. Through walking, stopping, returning. Nothing here needs intensity. Intensity actually confuses the forest. It tramples. It compacts the soil. Gentle repetition, on the other hand, leaves room for growth. You take another step on the familiar path. There is no shame in this. Walking it does not erase other options. Paths do not compete. They coexist. The forest is very good at holding many routes at once. Your breath deepens slightly, without instruction. In. Out. You realize that every time you have worried about changing, you have imagined a dramatic turn, a sudden leap from one trail to another. The forest smiles at this idea. Change here looks more like wandering. Like accidentally taking a slightly different step one day and realizing later that the view is shifted. Science explains, quietly, that repetition is not discipline. It is exposure. The brain learns what feels safe by feeling it repeatedly. That is all. No speech is required. You slow again, sensing the edges of the familiar trail. The lesser-used path remains nearby, patient, almost amused. It does not mind waiting. It knows you cannot rush trust. You stand between paths for a moment. Not choosing. Just noticing. The forest grows very still around you, as if holding its breath with you. Awareness settles into your chest like warmth. You are not here to force a new direction. You are here to understand how directions form at all. This understanding is already changing something, even if you cannot name it yet. The hum continues, steady and calm. Your breath follows it. Your body softens. You take one last look at the faint trail beside you. It remains, quiet and possible. You do not step onto it yet. You simply acknowledge it, the way you might acknowledge a thought passing through your mind without needing to follow it. For now, it is enough to know that paths appear whether you intend them to or not. And that noticing them, gently, is the first opening. Your breath deepens again. Curiosity replaces judgment. You slow without deciding to. The forest seems to suggest it, offering a smooth stone beside the path, warm as if it has been waiting for you. You sit, not because you were tired, but because sitting feels right. The ground supports you easily. It always has. You simply notice it now. Around you, the forest quiets. Not silence exactly, but a softer arrangement of sound. The distant hum lowers its volume. Leaves settle. Even the paths seem to pause, grateful for the break. You breathe, and your breath arrives slower than before, like it has nowhere else to be. Science settles beside you, calm and unhurried. It explains, gently, that growth does not happen when the brain is pushed. It happens when the system feels safe enough to loosen. Rest is not a pause from change. Rest is where change begins to feel possible. You let this idea sink in. You let yourself sink in. Your body understands rest better than your thoughts ever did. Muscles soften. The space behind your eyes feels wider. Warmth spreads across your chest, not exciting, just comforting, like a familiar blanket you forgot you owned. The forest responds to your stillness. Light shifts again, slower this time, as if dusk is considering arriving early just for you. Paths do not disappear when you stop walking them. They simply stop being reinforced. The ground begins to relax, tiny impressions easing back into neutral earth. This is what science means when it speaks of plasticity blooming in rest. Neurons, relieved of constant marching orders, begin to reorganize quietly. They tidy up. They make room. They hum softly to one another, saying, finally, we can stretch. You smile faintly. It is almost funny how much effort you once applied to changing yourself, when all along your brain was waiting for permission to rest. It turns out improvement is not impressed by urgency. It prefers warmth and time. You breathe in. The air feels heavier now, fuller. You breathe out. Old pathways loosen slightly when they are not walked. This is not loss. This is not forgetting. This is space returning to itself. Like grass rising after footsteps fade, the forest heals without instruction. You notice how safe this feels. Safety is not excitement. Safety is not achievement. Safety is the absence of threat. When the nervous system senses this absence, it releases its grip. Learning begins not with motivation, but with relief. Science nods quietly, pleased you are listening without trying. It reminds you that sleep, stillness, and gentle pauses are not passive states. They are active environments for growth. They are where the brain practices flexibility, the way water practices shaping stone by resting against it. You lean back slightly, supported by the ground, and feel the steady rhythm of your breath. In. Out. The forest grows even quieter, as if everyone has agreed to whisper. You feel held here, not watched, not evaluated. Nothing is keeping score. There is no progress bar hovering above your head. Honestly, the forest finds the idea of progress bars a little exhausting. You realize something subtle. When you stop trying to improve, your body does not panic. It relaxes. It trusts that change does not require constant supervision. It trusts that something wise is already at work. This trust feels new, but also ancient, like remembering something you knew as a child. The forest seems pleased by this recognition. It rustles softly, approving. You stay seated, letting minutes blur into sensation. Time behaves differently here. Without urgency, it stretches. Without demand, it deepens. Science steps back, allowing experience to teach what explanation never could. Your shoulders drop again. Your jaw softens. Your breath slows further. A gentle question drifts through the air, not demanding an answer. What happens when you stop trying to improve? It hangs there, curious and kind, like a leaf floating before landing. You do not answer it. You do not need to. The forest already knows that rest is not the opposite of growth. It is the condition that allows it. You place a hand on the ground beside you, feeling its quiet firmness. This forest has been forming paths long before you noticed them. It will continue shaping them long after you sleep. You do not need to manage it. The hum continues, slower now, deeper. Your breath matches it. Your body feels heavy in the best way. Eventually, you sense that sitting has done its work. Not because you were finished, but because rest has softened something enough to move again when the time comes. For now, you remain still a moment longer, honoring the pause. You exhale slowly. The forest exhales with you. You rise slowly, not because the forest asks you to, but because your body feels ready. Rest has done its quiet work. Nothing dramatic has shifted, yet everything feels slightly more open, like a window cracked just enough to let fresh air in. You stand where you were before, but the space around you feels wider now. Paths stretch out again, familiar and calm. And then you notice it. A narrow trail just off to the side, softer than the others, less certain, as if it is still deciding whether it wants to be a path at all. It does not sparkle. It does not call your name. It simply exists. Science steps closer, careful not to startle the moment. It explains that attention is not a command. It is not a whip or a lever. Attention is more like light. Wherever it rests, things warm slightly. Wherever it lingers, the ground responds over time. You let this idea settle. You are not being asked to abandon anything. You are not being asked to make a promise. You are only being invited to notice what happens when you look gently in a new direction. The forest holds its breath, not in anticipation, but in respect. It knows that choice feels safest when it is optional. You take a breath in. Your chest expands softly. You breathe out. You shift your weight almost without realizing it. Not forward, not backward. Just enough to feel balance change. The familiar path remains beneath one foot. The new trail brushes lightly against the other, like a thought you almost think. This is how new pathways begin. Not with certainty, but with proximity. Science smiles at this part. The brain does not require confidence to learn. It requires exposure. A moment of attention is enough to register possibility. You notice how your body responds. There is no alarm. No rush. Your nervous system stays calm, curious even. Safety hums quietly beneath the experience, and that safety makes exploration possible. You step onto the new trail gently. Not fully. Just enough to feel it. The ground is softer here, less compacted. Leaves shift underfoot. It feels unfamiliar, but not unpleasant. The forest does not react dramatically. It simply accommodates the step, as if to say, yes, that is allowed too. Science explains, quietly, that growth follows attention the way plants follow sunlight. Slowly. Patiently. No forcing required. You do not strengthen a path by stomping. You strengthen it by visiting. You smile at this. Somewhere deep down, you always suspected effort was overrated. The forest seems to agree. Honestly, it finds stomping a bit rude. You take another breath. In. Out. You notice a thought pass through you, softer than usual. Maybe it is a kinder response. Maybe it is a pause instead of a reaction. It does not linger long, but it leaves a trace, like a footprint that says, someone was here. This is enough for now. Science reassures you that the brain remembers even brief visits. Neurons respond to novelty when it feels safe, weaving new connections quietly, without announcement. You are not training through repetition yet. You are training through permission. Permission to step lightly. Permission to leave and return. Permission to not decide everything at once. The familiar path does not disappear behind you. It remains solid, reliable. You could return to it at any moment. Knowing this makes the new trail feel less risky. The forest understands the value of escape routes. It is very practical that way. Your breath slows again, syncing with your steps. Your shoulders stay relaxed. Your jaw stays soft. You realize that urgency never taught you anything lasting. It only made the ground hard. Safety, on the other hand, invites curiosity. Curiosity invites movement. Movement invites change. Science nods, pleased. This is how the nervous system learns. Slowly. Kindly. In an environment that does not threaten to punish mistakes. You pause on the new trail, feeling its texture beneath your feet. It does not feel finished. It does not need to. Paths become clear over time, not overnight. The forest has no interest in rushing its own growth. You glance back once, not with regret, but with appreciation. The old path carried you here. It deserves respect. Then you look forward again, noticing how the light seems to fall differently on this trail, softer, more scattered. You breathe in warmth. You breathe out tension. Small steps, science reminds you, are biologically powerful. They signal safety. They allow repetition to happen without resistance. They tell the brain that change is not a threat. You feel this truth settle into your body, not as motivation, but as ease. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to expand the ways you can walk. The forest grows quieter around you, approving. Leaves rustle gently, rearranging themselves beneath your feet, already beginning the slow work of adaptation. You do not need to walk far tonight. One gentle step is enough. One moment of attention is enough. The path will remember you. You inhale softly. And continue walking. You find yourself on the trail again. Not because you plan to return, and not because anyone reminded you. You simply notice that your feet are here, resting on the softer ground you touched before. The forest recognizes you immediately. There is no ceremony. Just a quiet sense of welcome, like a place that remembers your weight. The air feels familiar now, though nothing looks exactly the same. Leaves have shifted. Light falls at a slightly different angle. Repetition does not freeze a moment. It allows variation without threat. Science walks beside you, unhurried. It explains that repetition is not discipline. It is familiarity. The brain does not count how many times you visit a path. It notices whether returning feels safe. You breathe in. The breath arrives easily. You let it go. You take a step, then another. The trail responds without resistance. Each step presses the ground gently, not carving, not forcing, just saying hello again. The forest appreciates this tone. It has always preferred conversation over commands. You smile to yourself. Somewhere along the way, repetition became associated with effort, with doing it right, with not missing a day. The forest laughs softly at this idea. It does not own a calendar. It does not care about streaks. It cares about presence. The path feels slightly clearer underfoot. Not dramatically, just enough that your feet do not hesitate as much. This is how repetition works when pressure is removed. Familiarity grows quietly, like moss deciding it likes a particular stone. Science nods, pleased. Neurons respond to revisiting, not to perfection. Even brief returns leave traces. Even wandering visits count. Especially wandering visits. The brain is fond of them. You pause for a moment, feeling the ground. Soft. Supportive. A thought arises, gentle and brief. Perhaps it is a calmer response. Perhaps it is a pause where there once was tension. It does not stay long. That is fine. The forest has an excellent memory for short visits. You walk again, letting your arms swing naturally. Your body feels less guarded now, as if it trusts the trail to hold you. Safety hums beneath the movement, steady and low. You notice something important. You are not trying to make the path stronger. You are simply enjoying how it feels to walk here. This enjoyment changes everything. Science explains that when repetition is paired with ease, the brain welcomes it. When repetition is paired with pressure, the brain resists. The forest agrees wholeheartedly. It has seen what pressure does. Compacts the soil. Flattens the roots. Ease, on the other hand, leaves room for life to settle in. You take another breath. In. Out. You realize that inconsistency has worried you before. Missed days. Missed chances. But the forest does not experience absence the way you do. When you are gone, it rests. When you return, it resumes. Nothing is erased. Nothing is offended. This realization loosens something in your chest. You have always been afraid that stepping away meant starting over. Science gently corrects this fear. The brain remembers even gentle visits. It keeps a quiet map, updating it whenever you pass through. You step where you stepped before. The ground gives slightly, recognizing the impression. Not deep, not permanent, just enough to say, yes, this has happened before. The path does not demand that you walk it tomorrow. It does not ask for promises. It trusts rhythm more than rules. The forest has survived countless seasons without schedules. It knows growth does not require constant supervision. You smile again, amused by how patient this place is. Honestly, it is doing most of the work without you. You are simply showing up. You slow, letting your breath match your pace. Step. Pause. Step. Science explains, quietly, that repetition works best when it feels optional. Choice signals safety. Safety signals openness. Openness allows learning to happen without friction. You feel this truth in your body. There is no tightness urging you forward. No voice saying hurry. Just a gentle momentum, like walking downhill without needing to push. You notice how the forest responds now. The leaves seem more settled. The light feels warmer. This is not imagination. It is perception changing as your nervous system relaxes. A tiny laugh escapes you, almost involuntary. It is funny how little effort this takes compared to what you once believed. The forest appreciates humor. It considers it a sign of flexibility. You pause again, standing on the path. Your shoulders stay relaxed. Your jaw stays soft. You think about all the times you assumed repetition had to be hard to work. The forest gently disproves this assumption with its very existence. Everything here grows through returning, not striving. Science adds, kindly, that ease strengthens pathways because the brain wants to come back. Desire, not discipline, is the quieter teacher. You feel this lesson settle, not as a rule, but as permission. You do not need to be perfect to repeat something. You only need to like how it feels. The path ahead looks the same, and yet different. Not brighter. Just more familiar. Like a song you recognize after the first few notes. You take one more gentle step, then slow to a stop. This is enough for tonight. The forest does not require more. It never does. As you stand, a soft question forms, not demanding an answer. What if ease is the fastest teacher? The thought drifts, unhurried, settling somewhere warm. You breathe with it. The forest breathes with you. And as your breath finds its steady rhythm, the path remains beneath you, patient, ready for whenever you wander back again. You notice it before you think about it. A gentle tug. A familiar direction. Your feet slow, then drift slightly, as if remembering something on their own. The forest does not tense. It has seen this moment many times before. Old paths have a way of calling softly, especially when they know you well. You pause, standing between routes. The newer trail is still beneath you, but the older one feels closer now, wider, easier to step onto without looking. It carries the weight of memory, of repetition, of nights when it was the only place that felt safe. Science approaches calmly, hands open. It does not label this moment as a mistake. It names it efficiency. The brain loves what is well-worn because well-worn feels predictable. Predictable feels safe. Safety matters more to learning than novelty ever will. You breathe in. The air feels steady. You breathe out. There is no disappointment here. Only recognition. You are not doing something wrong by noticing the pull. You are witnessing biology doing what it does best, conserving energy, choosing familiarity, protecting you from uncertainty. You step onto the old path without ceremony. The ground feels firm, supportive, immediately responsive. Your body relaxes a fraction, grateful for the ease. The forest does not judge this choice. It understands comfort. It understands history. You walk a few steps, noticing how automatic it feels. Your feet know exactly where to land. Your breath finds a rhythm quickly. This path has been practiced. It has been trusted. It has carried you through moments when nothing else could. Science walks beside you, explaining softly that returning does not undo learning. Neural pathways do not compete like rivals. They coexist like options on a map. Walking one does not erase the others. The forest has room for many routes. This thought settles gently in your chest. You have been afraid before that returning meant losing progress. That one wrong step meant starting over. The forest gently shakes its head at this idea. It has never worked that way. You breathe again. In. Out. You notice that the old path does not feel as tight as it once did. It still exists, still familiar, but something about it has softened. Perhaps it is you who has softened. Perhaps it is the space created by walking somewhere else, even briefly. The forest seems to agree. Leaves have shifted here too. Nothing remains exactly as it was. Paths evolve whether you intend them to or not. You feel a warmth in your chest, a reassurance spreading slowly. Relapse, science explains quietly, is part of learning. Returning is information. It tells the brain what still feels safe, what still needs gentleness, what is not yet ready to be released. There is kindness in this framing. You feel it land in your body, easing a long-held tension. You do not need to scold yourself back onto the new trail. You do not need to prove anything tonight. The forest is very clear about this. Harshness compacts the ground. Kindness keeps it flexible. You slow your steps, listening to the hum beneath everything. It remains calm, unchanged by your direction. Neurons continue their quiet conversations, updating their maps without drama. You smile faintly. Somewhere along the way, you learn to fear going backward. The forest finds this amusing. It does not recognize backward. It only recognizes movement and rest. You stop walking and stand still. Your shoulders soften. Your jaw loosens. You look toward where the newer trail branches off again. It is still there. It has not faded. It has not been offended by your absence. It waits without expectation. Science points this out gently. New pathways weaken only when the system feels threatened. Returning to comfort does not threaten learning. It stabilizes it. You feel this truth resonate. Stability first. Exploration later. The nervous system sets the order, not the mind. You take another breath. Warm. Slow. You realize that choosing kindness here changes everything. There is no inner lecture. No urgency to correct course. Just understanding. This understanding itself is new ground being formed. The forest responds with a soft rustle, approving. It likes when you treat yourself as part of nature rather than a problem to be solved. You take a few steps back toward the place where the paths meet. Not leaving the old path in rejection, but in appreciation. It did its job. It still does. As you stand at the crossing again, you notice how different this moment feels compared to the past. There is less fear. Less pressure. More trust. Trust that you can move between paths without losing yourself. Science smiles. This flexibility is learning. This is plasticity in motion. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just real. You feel warmth settle in your chest again, deeper this time. The reassurance stays with you. You are allowed to return. You are allowed to wander. You are allowed to learn at your own pace. The forest remains kind, no matter where you walk. That is its greatest lesson. You exhale slowly. The pressure dissolves. You notice the ground differently now. Not just the paths, not just where your feet land, but the soil itself. It stretches beneath everything, dark and rich, quietly holding every step you have ever taken. The forest feels closer here, more intimate, as if it wants you to understand what truly supports all change. You lower yourself slightly, bending your knees, placing a hand on the earth. It feels warm, alive, responsive. This is not passive ground. This is soil that remembers weather, footsteps, seasons, rest. Science kneels beside you, smiling gently, and begins to explain without interrupting the calm. Emotion, it says softly, is the soil of change. You breathe in. The air feels heavier. You breathe out. Learning does not happen in dry ground. It does not happen where everything is tense and compressed. The brain changes most easily when the emotional environment feels safe enough to soften. Safety allows flexibility. Warmth allows connection. Curiosity allows movement. You feel this truth settle in your body. When you have felt threatened, rushed, judged, your muscles tightened. Your thoughts narrowed. The ground beneath you hardened. But here, in this forest, nothing is demanding. The soil remains open, ready. You sit fully now, resting on the earth. The forest does not mind. It has always welcomed stillness. The distant hum grows lower, steadier, like a lullaby the brain hums to itself when it no longer needs to be alert. Science continues, quietly. Emotion does not decorate learning. It fuels it. When you feel safe, neurons communicate more freely. When you feel warmth, connections strengthen naturally. When you feel curiosity, the brain leans forward instead of pulling back. You smile faintly at the simplicity of it. All this time, you thought change required effort, when what it really required was permission to feel okay where you are. You breathe again. In. Out. You notice the soil beneath your hand responding slightly, shifting, settling. Harshness, you realize, presses the ground flat. Kindness loosens it. This is true in forests. It is true in bodies. It is true in minds. The forest seems to confirm this with a gentle rustle. Leaves rearrange themselves. Roots stretch quietly underground. Nothing dramatic happens, and yet everything continues. You remember moments when you tried to force yourself forward, when you criticized your own pace, when you demanded better from yourself. The soil in those moments felt tight, resistant. Learning struggled to take hold. Now you understand why. Science offers reassurance. This was not failure. This was biology responding to pressure. The brain protects itself by limiting change when the environment feels unsafe. It waits. It conserves. It survives. You feel compassion rise where frustration once lived. That compassion warms the soil instantly. You feel it in your chest, spreading slowly, easing old tension. You shift your weight, feeling supported. The ground holds you easily. It always has. The forest grows quieter still, as if honoring this realization. You sense that the paths above will respond differently now, not because you forced them to, but because the ground beneath them has changed. You breathe warmth in. You breathe tension out. Science explains that curiosity is a powerful signal of safety. When you wonder rather than judge, the brain opens. Curiosity keeps the soil loose. It invites exploration without fear of punishment. You notice curiosity flicker gently inside you now. Not sharp, not urgent. Just a soft interest in how things unfold. This curiosity feels pleasant. It does not demand answers. The forest appreciates this tone. It leans into it, allowing light to filter through the canopy in a warmer hue. The paths look different, not because they moved, but because the ground beneath them feels more alive. You realize something quietly profound. You are changing simply by feeling safe. Not by doing anything special. Not by pushing. Just by allowing your body to relax into an environment that does not threaten it. This realization settles deep. You feel it in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the way your shoulders rest more naturally. The brain takes note. Connections adjust. Soil shifts. You laugh softly, almost surprised. It turns out you did not need to be harder on yourself. You needed to be kinder. The forest seems amused that this took so long to discover. It has been trying to show you all along. You place both hands on the ground now, grounding yourself fully. Warmth rises. Stillness spreads. Science steps back, allowing experience to do the teaching. Emotion, safety, and warmth continue their quiet work without supervision. The brain does what it does best when left alone in the right conditions. You stay here a while, not counting time. Time feels unnecessary. The forest does not rush growth. It trusts it. As you sit, a gentle promise forms, not spoken aloud but felt clearly. You are changing simply by feeling safe. This promise does not need to be remembered. The soil remembers for you. You inhale warmth. You exhale tension. The forest holds you in this balance, preparing you gently for what comes next, knowing that when the ground is ready, movement will follow naturally. You notice something has quietly shifted. The word training no longer feels heavy. It no longer suggests schedules or discipline or effortful striving. Here in the forest, training feels more like staying. Like letting your body remain where it already knows how to be. You walk again, but slowly, without destination. The paths feel familiar now, not just the newer ones, not just the older ones, but the entire space between them. The forest has stopped feeling like a place you visit and started feeling like a place that recognizes you. Science walks with you, relaxed. It explains that the brain learns through exposure. Not through force. Not through correction. Exposure simply means being present with something often enough that it stops feeling new. You breathe in. The air feels soft. You breathe out. Your steps are unremarkable, and that is precisely why they matter. Walking, pausing, noticing, returning. This rhythm repeats itself without instruction. No one is keeping score. The forest would not know what to do with a score even if you handed it one. You pause at a familiar bend. Light filters through the canopy, landing in patches on the ground. These patches move slightly as leaves sway above. You do not try to control the light. You simply stand where it falls. This is training without effort. Science nods gently. The brain changes when it is allowed to observe without defending itself. When attention rests without demand, neurons adjust quietly, strengthening what feels safe and loosening what no longer needs to be held so tightly. You feel this happening in your body. There is less tension in your jaw, less bracing in your shoulders. Your breath moves freely, not guided, not corrected. In, out. You remember how you once believed that progress required pushing past discomfort. The forest does not deny discomfort exists. It simply refuses to make it the teacher. Safety teaches faster. Ease teaches deeper. You take another step, then another, feeling the ground support you consistently. Familiarity has settled in. The newer trail no longer feels new. The older ones no longer feel overpowering. They are just options, coexisting without conflict. The forest seems pleased with this balance. Leaves rustle softly, as if whispering approval. Honestly, the forest prefers harmony. Conflict makes its roots tired. You smile at that thought. Humor slips in gently, like a leaf landing on your shoulder and refusing to move. You let it stay. Science explains, quietly, that effort often signals threat to the nervous system. When effort appears, the brain prepares for danger. When ease appears, the brain opens. Learning follows openness. You feel this truth resonate. Training without effort feels less like doing and more like allowing. Allowing yourself to walk. Allowing yourself to stop. Allowing yourself to drift. You pause again, noticing how natural it feels to stand still now. Stillness no longer feels like avoidance. It feels like participation. The forest includes stillness as part of its rhythm. Your breath slows further. Your heartbeat feels steady. Your body feels heavy in a comfortable way. You realize that change has already been happening for some time. Quietly. Without announcements. Without milestones. The forest has been rearranging itself gently beneath your awareness. Science steps back again, satisfied. It knows its role here is not to instruct, but to reassure. The brain does not need to be managed. It needs to be trusted. You look around, taking in the soft shapes, the layered greens, the warm shadows. This place feels welcoming because your nervous system has decided it is safe. Safety is the doorway through which all learning enters. You breathe again. Warm air in. Warm air out. You notice how your thoughts feel less sticky now. They pass through like clouds instead of grabbing at you. This is not control. This is flexibility. The forest specializes in flexibility. You walk a few more steps, then stop, then walk again. No pattern. No plan. This wandering is not aimless. It is exactly what the brain needs to learn without resistance. Science quietly confirms this. Exposure without pressure allows neural pathways to strengthen naturally. Repetition happens because you want to return, not because you force yourself to. You feel gratitude for this realization. It settles gently, like a weight placed exactly where it belongs. The forest responds with a deeper calm, as if acknowledging this shared understanding. You notice something else now. The urge to improve has softened. In its place is a sense of trust. Trust that the paths know how to grow. Trust that the soil knows how to support them. Trust that you do not need to supervise every step. You chuckle softly at the idea of supervising a forest. It would not go well. The forest seems to agree. You stand quietly, letting this trust deepen. Your shoulders remain loose. Your breath remains slow. training without effort feels sustainable. It feels like something you could do without thinking about it. Which, science notes approvingly, is exactly how learning becomes part of you. The light shifts again, lower now, warmer. The forest prepares for rest, not because it is tired, but because rest is part of its cycle. You feel that cycle in your body. A natural slowing. A gentle settling. Nothing ends here. It simply transitions. You take one last look around, not searching for change, but noticing how present you feel. Presence itself has become the practice. You inhale softly. You exhale slowly. Your steps slow further as the forest guides you towards stillness once more, knowing that what happens next will unfold on its own, without effort, without instruction, carried quietly into the next phase of the journey. The light fades slowly, spilling warm amber through the trees. Shadows stretch and soften, like blankets draped over the forest floor. You feel the gentle weight of evening settle into your body. Your breath lengthens. Your shoulders drop. There is no need to hurry. You lie down on the soft earth, allowing the ground to hold you fully. The forest hums quietly around you, low and constant, a lullaby older than thought. Leaves settle. Roots stretch. The air holds its warmth, inviting stillness. Science appears beside you, not to instruct, but to whisper reassurance. Sleep, it says softly, is not a pause from learning. Sleep is the gardener of the mind. While you rest, neurons prune and strengthen, weaving patterns like careful vines. Paths you walk during the day glow faintly in the quiet, growing more defined even as your body does nothing. You close your eyes, sensing the subtle shift. You are not abandoning growth. You are inviting it to unfold naturally. The forest knows this rhythm. It has always worked this way. Breath moves gently in and out. In. Out. You feel warmth along your spine, along your chest, as if the forest itself is breathing with you. Neural pathways reorganize quietly, without pressure or ceremony. The brain knows its work. You do not need to supervise. You only need to allow yourself to be held. The hum continues, low and calm. Even the faint rustle of leaves blends into it, a soothing rhythm that matches your heartbeat. Every exhale releases tension. Every inhale brings calm. This is how the brain learns without effort, through presence, safety, and time. Science points out that nothing you do is wasted. Even brief steps along a new path leave a mark. Even wandering, even pausing, even rest all contribute. Your body and mind carry memory in ways deeper than intention. You smile faintly in the dimming light. Humor drifts quietly through you, small and gentle, like noticing a bird softly tapping a branch, curious but unobtrusive. The forest appreciates this levity. It reminds you that change need not be serious. It can be light. You feel the weight of your body sink further into the soil. Your jaw relaxes. Your breath slows further. Dusk deepens. Stars peek through the canopy, delicate pinpricks of light. The world above mirrors the quiet work below. The forest, the neurons, the soil, all in rhythm, all in gentle motion. Even while you rest, paths are strengthened. Connections flourish. Growth happens naturally, without effort. You notice the sense of release that comes from this understanding. Relief spreads through your chest. Rest is not a failure. Stillness is not a pause. It is the medium through which change flows most effortlessly. Your breath moves like a wave across the forest floor, slow and rhythmic. In. Out. You are cradled by the forest. You are held by the earth. You are attended to by unseen patterns rearranging themselves while you sleep. There is no rush. There is no demand. Only quiet transformation, invisible, gentle, persistent. You exhale slowly, letting the day's small worries dissolve. Neural trails glow faintly, pathways shifting and settling. The forest hums. Your body hums. You hum. And as you drift deeper into stillness, you carry the soft truth: the brain trains itself while you rest. You are not passive. You are participating in the most subtle form of learning, presence. A long exhale carries you toward the threshold of dreams. The forest, your body, your mind, all breathe with you. Morning arrives quietly. Light spills through the trees in soft, golden streaks, warming the moss and the fallen leaves. The forest does not announce its arrival. It simply shifts, revealing gentle paths illuminated by the sun. You notice how calm it feels. Safe. Open. You rise slowly from the soft earth. Your body remembers the rhythm of the trails, the ease of walking, the comfort of stillness. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. You feel the quiet joy of returning to a space that holds both familiarity and possibility. Science appears again, smiling gently, and reminds you that neural pathways are never finished. Plasticity does not end. Paths you have walked, paths you have paused on, and paths you have avoided all coexist. They do not compete. They simply exist, ready whenever you return. You take a step along one of the older trails. It is familiar, supportive, steady beneath your feet. You notice another, newer path branching nearby. It does not need your immediate attention. It waits quietly, patient. You could choose to follow it later, or not at all. Both options are equally valid. Your breath flows slowly. In. Out. You begin to realize that the forest has been teaching you something subtle. Change does not arrive as a sudden, dramatic event. Change arrives as presence, repetition without pressure, attention without demand, and trust in the unseen work of rest. The brain moves through patterns quietly, always, gently, persistently. You step onto a small incline. Leaves rustle underfoot. Sunlight touches your face. You feel warmth in your chest, a soft reassurance spreading through your shoulders, down your spine, settling like a soft blanket. The forest seems to breathe with you, in tandem with the rise and fall of your own chest. Science explains that trust is not passive. It is biological. When the nervous system senses safety, when the soil beneath your feet and the paths in your mind feel steady, learning flows without friction. Effort is not required. Motivation is not required. Presence is enough. You walk a few steps more, noticing how the trails blend in your mind. No path is more important than another. Old habits do not erase new learning. New choices do not erase past experience. The forest holds them all, simultaneously, harmoniously. You breathe in slowly. The air is warm. You exhale gently. A soft smile rises in your chest. Humor drifts like a feather, a quiet acknowledgement that this journey was not about perfection, about achievement, or about proving anything. It was about noticing, exploring, resting, and trusting. You laugh softly to yourself, as if the forest itself invited the gesture. The sunlight shifts again, and the day lengthens. You feel the rhythm of the forest in your own body. Neurons fire quietly, connections strengthen, some pathways loosen, and new patterns form invisibly. Your body is aware of this process even if your conscious mind does not fully grasp it. You pause at a gentle intersection of trails. You look at the older paths you have walked and feel gratitude. You look at the newer ones and feel curiosity. You do not need to step onto any particular trail right now. Presence is enough. Attention itself has already reshaped the landscape inside your mind. Science explains that there is no finish line. Growth is not a destination. Plasticity is continuous, unfolding across every moment of awareness and rest. Your life is composed of subtle repetitions, gentle exposures, and the ongoing work of presence. You are learning simply by being. You notice the warmth of the sun on your skin, the subtle texture of leaves underfoot, the distant hum of the forest. All of this signals that the environment is safe, receptive. Safety, science says, allows the brain to expand. Safety allows curiosity to bloom. Safety allows trust to grow. You take a step forward, then another. You do not need to walk fast. You do not need to arrive anywhere. The rhythm of your movement itself is enough to reinforce all the work that has quietly occurred. The forest carries you, the soil carries you, your breath carries you. In this moment, you feel trust replacing effort. Trust that the paths you are becoming, old and new, can coexist. Trust that your nervous system has been shaping, learning, reorganizing all along. Trust that this gentle process is sufficient. You pause for a moment, closing your eyes briefly, letting your awareness expand. You feel the gentle heartbeat of the forest, the rhythm of your own breath, the quiet hum of neural pathways being strengthened in the background. You are safe. You are supported. You are enough. You open your eyes. Sunlight warms your face. The forest stretches around you, infinite and patient. There is no achievement to mark, no milestone to reach, no destination required. Presence, awareness, and gentle curiosity are enough to carry you forward. You take one last slow breath in. You feel warmth rise. You exhale gently, releasing tension, releasing expectation. And as the forest hums softly around you, as light filters through leaves and paths stretch gently forward, you carry the quiet truth of the journey. Change is continuous, safe, gentle, and always within you. You take another step, slow and deliberate, stepping into the morning of the forest, into the paths you are becoming, and into the calm trust that accompanies every mindful breath.